Nobody expected the biggest drama of the 1966 World Cup to happen before the tournament had even started. There were no goals, no controversial refereeing decisions, and no last-minute winners. Instead, football's biggest competition was thrown into chaos by something almost impossible to believe. The World Cup trophy itself had been stolen. Gone. Vanished just months before the tournament began. And for a brief moment, FIFA faced a nightmare scenario. What if the trophy was never found? What if the World Cup went ahead without the one symbol that defined it? And somehow, the story that followed became one of the strangest in football history. Welcome back to GameBlueprint. Today, we're looking at the day FIFA almost stopped the World Cup. It's a story filled with panic, embarrassment, mystery, and one of the most bizarre twists the sport has ever seen. Because in 1966, England wasn't just preparing to host the World Cup for the first time. It was preparing to host football's biggest event under the spotlight of the entire world. But before a single ball had been kicked, disaster struck. To understand why this was such a huge problem, you have to understand what the World Cup trophy meant at the time. This wasn't just a piece of silverware. The Jules Rimet Trophy was the ultimate symbol of football greatness. It was the object every nation dreamed of lifting. The image of the winning captain holding that trophy was the image that defined football history. So when England, the host nation, put it on public display in London ahead of the tournament, it was meant to build excitement. Instead, it created a crisis. On March 20, 1966, the unthinkable happened. The Jules Rimet Trophy was stolen from Westminster Central Hall in London during a stamp exhibition. Somehow, despite being guarded, the trophy had been taken from its display case and smuggled out of the building. When officials realized it was missing, panic spread immediately. England was about to host the World Cup, and somehow it had lost the World Cup trophy before the tournament had even begun. The story exploded across Britain and beyond. This wasn't just a simple robbery. It was an international embarrassment. The host nation of the biggest football tournament on earth had failed to protect the most important object in the sport. For FIFA and the English FA, it was a complete nightmare. Because while the tournament itself could still technically go ahead, the damage to the World Cup's image would be massive if the trophy was gone for good. Scotland Yard was called in straight away. The pressure on police was enormous. This was not an ordinary stolen item. This was football's greatest prize. Detectives launched a major investigation, trying to figure out who had taken it, how they had done it, and where the trophy had gone. But that was only the beginning. Soon after, the English FA received a ransom note demanding money in exchange for the trophy's safe return. That changed everything. Now this wasn't just a theft. It had become a full criminal operation. Police set up a sting and eventually arrested a man named Edward Bechley when he tried to collect the ransom money. But there was one huge problem. Even after the arrest, the trophy was still missing. Bechley claimed he was only a middleman and that someone else had stolen it. Whether that was true or not, nobody could prove it. And so the biggest fear remained. The World Cup was getting closer, and football's most famous trophy was still gone. This is the point where the crisis became truly serious. Officials reportedly began considering what would happen if the trophy was never recovered. A replacement might have to be made. Imagine that for a second. The biggest tournament in football being played without the real trophy. The finals still taking place, the champions still being crowned, but the iconic moment of lifting the World Cup happening with a replica instead. It would have been a humiliation for FIFA and a permanent stain on England's tournament. And then, just when the whole story seemed to be getting worse, football got the strangest rescue imaginable. A week after the theft, a man named David Corbett was walking his dog in South London. During the walk, the dog noticed a package hidden near a parked car. Corbett checked it and found something wrapped in newspaper. Inside was the Jules Rimet Trophy. It sounds too ridiculous to be real, but it was true. After all the police work, all the headlines, and all the panic, the World Cup trophy was found not by Scotland Yard, not by FIFA, and not by the Football Association, but by a dog named Pickles. Instantly, the story changed. What had been a national embarrassment turned into one of the most bizarre and memorable moments in football history. Pickles became a celebrity overnight. Newspapers loved it. The public loved it. England had gone from losing the World Cup trophy to being saved by a dog, all in the space of a week. But even though the trophy was back, the damage of the theft had already exposed something important. It showed how vulnerable even football's biggest tournament could be. Today, it's almost impossible to imagine the World Cup trophy being displayed with such weak security. But in 1966, the sport was not the global machine it is now. The theft was a warning. FIFA's greatest event could be thrown into chaos by one shocking mistake. There was also another twist to the story. Even though Edward Bechley was convicted for his role in the ransom attempt, the identity of the actual thief was never fully confirmed. Bechley claimed he had been working for someone else, but the real mastermind was never properly found. That mystery has kept the story alive for decades, because even now, one of football's strangest crimes still doesn't have a perfect ending. And what makes the story even more incredible is what happened just a few months later. England went on to win the 1966 World Cup. Bobby Moore lifted the very same Jules Rimet Trophy at Wembley after England beat West Germany 4-2 in one of the most famous finals in football history. Think about that for a moment. The trophy that had been stolen, hidden in newspaper, and nearly lost forever became the centerpiece of England's greatest footballing moment. That contrast is what makes this story unforgettable. The same trophy that almost ruined the tournament's image ended up defining its most iconic ending. But if Pickles had never found that package, the 1966 World Cup could have looked very different. The tournament might still have gone ahead, but the symbolism would have been broken. The winners may have lifted a replica. The final image of England's greatest triumph would always have carried the shadow of a missing original. That's why this story matters so much. Not because the World Cup was literally cancelled, but because for a brief moment, the tournament's credibility and identity were in danger. The World Cup is more than just football matches. It is ceremony, symbolism, and legacy. And when the trophy disappeared, all of that felt unstable. In the end, the World Cup survived. England became champions. The trophy was recovered. And the entire disaster turned into football folklore. But the story remains one of the greatest near disasters in the history of the game. A reminder that even the biggest tournament on earth can be shaken by one act of carelessness, one criminal plan, and one missing symbol. And perhaps the most unbelievable part of all is this. When football's greatest tournament needed saving, it wasn't FIFA, the police, or the Football Association that rescued it. It was Pickles. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more football stories from GameBlueprint.